Hello again, everybody. This is Derek, and I'm coming at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. And in this video, we're going to continue on with our store news update. And in our store news updates, what we tend to do is touch on a couple of topics like what I've worked on, and finished, and what I am currently working on, what kind of supplies I might have gotten in, and also like what kind of product I'm getting in or I have gotten in. All right, so and this kind of keeps you up to date. Plus, I talk about news. And in today's news, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my upcoming projects that I've got working on for myself uh, here. So let's start off with what have I finished? Well, I finished all my artillery pieces for my Quatre Bras game, the Allies, the Brunswickers, the Dutch Belgians, the British, the Hanover. They all have their artillery guns rebased. They've already been painted, and so I rebased them, and I used a new type of flock, which I used coarse turf on the base in addition to like regular turf. I used some Woodland Scenics like Earth Blend Green fine turf on the base, which is kind of a great ground level. And then I added on top of that some coarse turf. And now what that made the artillery pieces look like, it looked like they were in some bushes or weeds or whatever. If you want to see what they look like, go back and check out yesterday's live stream, on Monday's live stream. Okay, so that's really what I finished. Now, what am I currently working on? Well, I'm oh wait, I also finished all my Napoleonic buildings. Those are also finished as well. And so I recorded a bunch of videos, and those will be going up gradually. Each building will get its own video on me painting it and completing it. It'll take me a while to edit all those, but I'll get them up maybe one a day or something like that. So come out and check those out. Another thing that I'm working on is my commission for my French starter army. I have a customer who's commissioned me to do a French starter army, and that's currently what I am working on. Now, in addition to that, I'm also working on my own personal Quatre Bras game, miniatures, my Napoleonics, and I'm going to slow down on those. For one reason, I really need to get this commission out of the way, get it knocked out for this customer. And in the news section, I'll talk about some other projects that I might be starting. All right, so that was what I finished, what I'm working on. Okay, what kind of supplies have I gotten in? Well, one thing I've gotten in is these paint racks, right? Those are the big things that I got in. I got some, let's see, anything else? I got some mud effects, which is really good. And that's about it. I haven't really gotten anything else in for the store. Oh, some boxes? No. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that I've gotten in for the store or my workbench. Um, yeah, so that's supplies that I've gotten in. Now, product. What product did I get in? Well, I got a huge shipment of Victrix in. I also got in a order of Old Glory, which had some tanks and some American War of Independence and Napoleonic figures. Now I'm talking about the 28 millimeter stuff, and I put all the vehicles together and put them on the store already. And the infantry American War of Independence and Napoleonics in 28 millimeter. Those are also on the store already as well. Now, there are some things that I've ordered that haven't gotten here yet, but I ordered a fairly sizable American War of Independence Old Glory 15s because I've only got like 3 packs left, so I'm glad I put a pretty sizable order in for that. And but that's going to be still a couple of weeks, I do believe. And then I ordered some Litco bases, but primarily they are movement trays, and I'll get into that in a moment when we get to news. There was a reason why I had ordered these movement trays and bases. And I also have some Flames of War starters coming in, which I'm going to be straight up and tell you I'm not going to sell them as starters. What I do with the Flames of War starter boxes, when they come in, I open them up and then I take what I want for my personal collection. Don't tell anybody, but that's what I do. And then whatever's remaining, I put them up on the store as a blister or a sprues, so you can pick up a bunch of tanks and stuff for individual tanks on sprues. I also put another order in for Old Glory 28s, or I should say, if they call themselves Old Glory 25, but the miniatures are 28s. So I ordered a couple more vehicles for World War II. All right, so let's talk news, because this is pretty. It's why I've got these figures out, and going forward, you're going to see a lot more about what I'm about to tell you. Okay, so I've had a desire to really put an effort into Oathmark. Oathmark is a 28 millimeter fantasy skirmish. Some people call it a rank and flank game. I think that's incorrect. I would never call a game. That's not in my vocabulary. What I call it is rank and file, right? Because you got ranks of guys and you have files of guys. The rank and flank just doesn't even make sense. Okay, so, but either way, that's neither here nor there. It's a game similar to, in the same vein as like Warhammer, where you've got units of guys moving them around in groups of 10 to 20 figures or whatever, and battling it out with your orcs and your dwarves and your goblins and your elves and your humans and your dragons and ogres and stuff like that, right? So I've had a desire to play a fantasy game, and Oathmark really is a great game. I tried Warlords of Erewhon, but that's written as a joke. It's from Warlord Games, but Erewhon is nowhere spelled backwards, and to me that ruined the game. I mean, it's my own personal hang-up, but it ruined the game for me when the author couldn't take his own game seriously, right? I understand you want to have fun and joke around and stuff like that, but name your game something serious. If you're not going to name it serious, how am I going to take the game serious? So, and I couldn't take the game serious. It was, so I tried it. We played a few games of it here in the store, but it didn't catch on. People didn't. Maybe my personal hangups might have bled over into the feelings of the game, but it just didn't work out, right? Okay, so Oathmark has a much more dark fantasy, uh, almost like a not Lord of the Rings. Yeah, kind of like Lord of the Rings, uh, first or second age feel to it, right? And so I wanted to put together some units for that game. I already have some orcs and some skeletons and some humans, but the skeletons are Greek, right? Because they were warlords Atlantic. The orcs are from Warhammer, and the humans are from Hail Caesar. So I decided that I rebased my humans to be more of a Meg style basing, so that if you're looking for a Meg style basing for your humans, your Gaelic infantry, I've got them. I got them on the store. I've decided I wasn't going to use them. And the skeletons are Greek skeletons, so they're hoplites and stuff like that. And I didn't want to use those for my warlords, or I'm sorry, I didn't want to use them for my Oathmark. So I decided I'm going to just go ahead and paint up some new armies. I think I'm going to start with some dwarves because I've never ever painted an army of dwarves. I think it would be fun. Okay, so I'm going to start with elves and dwarves and armies that I don't, and maybe some skeletons, but armies that I don't normally paint. So the dwarves are going to be first. Now, I'm going to break from the traditional rules. The rules say that a figure should be based on a 1x1 square and then ranked up 5 figures across, right? And then up to 4 ranks deep for a total of 20 figures possibly in a unit. I saw someone else doing this, and it inspired me to use a movement tray with round holes and mount my individual models on round bases. But once you put them in the movement tray, it winds up being exactly the same as if they had square bases, right? So maybe with a little lip around the outer edge with where the movement tray holds them all into place. But that's negligible, right? So, so I got a bunch of movement trays on the way from Litco. I got some round bases. I'm going to experiment with different thicknesses of round bases and different materials because I have some metal washers, but I also have some wood and I have some plastic. So I'm going to see which ones work with these movement trays and with the figures that I'm about to mount on those, because I don't want them to be standing on top of a base with their own figure base, making the model sit up super high. Okay, that's Oathmark. Now, Oathmark is still probably going to be my number 3 project. My number 1 project that's coming up within the next week or so is threefold, right? This is going to be, okay, first of all, let's look at these. These are World War II figures. The project is going to be 15 millimeter World War II. I've already evaluated different scales like 12 millimeter, 6 millimeter, even 1/72nd, and I found that 15 millimeter is the way that I want to go. There's 3 games that I want to play from time to time. I want to play Operation, or I want to play Battle Group, right? I own those rules. I played them. They play really good. They are designed to be a skirmish level game. Figures are supposed to be individually based. At 15 millimeter, I feel that is almost undesirable because you got to move 100 different models singly. So I've decided to mount them like this, right? With like 4 or 3 or even 2 figures. Like here's a medium machine gun. So this is how I based my battle group. Well, these are going to get rebased. Why? Because there's 2 other games that I want to play as well. One of them is O Group. Now, O Group is a level above Battle Group. So, O Group is instead of these being individual men, this would represent a whole squad, right? So, this would be, 8 to 12, around 10 men, right? And then like 3 of these there we go, would be a platoon. So that's a platoon, and then there would also be, and then if you had these are Germans, but if you had 3 platoons, you would have a company, and then you'd have another stand, which would be your company commander. Where in Battle Group, this would just be 9 guys, right? It would be a squad. There would be a squad, that would be a squad, you'd have another squad. So it basically just levels up my my figures or the scale of the game. And then there's the third game that I want to build for, and that's Command Decision. I've played Command Decision for 25 years. I played since the 90s, 80s, 90s? Let me think about this. Late 80s, probably like 88 or something like that. I've been playing Command Decision up to maybe 2005 or something like that. So I basically say about 20 years I played Command Decision. And I loved that game. I played hundreds of games of Command Decision. But when Command Decision 3 was released, I was disenchanted with Command Decision and moved on to other games like Spearhead, which I could also mount these to be used with Spearhead. So all of these, I've decided that I'm going to rebase my models so that they're compatible with all the games. Now, with a focus, and this is to be honest, with a focus being on O Group, which is the middle one, right? So I see O Group as being a very versatile and streamlined game. And so I'm going to kind of dig deep into O Group. I haven't yet, so I could be completely wrong, but that is going to be the subject of my miniature collection development. Most of my figures are not mounted like this. Most of my figures are mounted like this, right? With 4 figures on a base, right? Well, I'm not going to play O Group with bases like this. You can, right? You're allowed to, but I'm not going to. I'm going to convert all of my line or rifle platoons into this size base, which is the Flames of War small base. And the like my machine guns or 3-man teams, right? I had based on these normal squad bases, which is a medium base. I'm going to see if I think I can convert these 3 figures and fit them on a base like this. I saw somebody suggest that I put the base lengthwise, but I don't think I think that would be worse. I'll figure it out. I would can fit these three guys on a base like that. There's three figures with the gun and the crew and everything. If I have to go a little bit bigger with another base, that's perfectly fine. But I'm going to try to keep my my bases on these small bases, right? And if there are commanders, they should be maybe based. I think I'm going to base them on round bases individually, maybe a 20 millimeter base, which is these small bases are just over 20 by 30, right? They're 20 by 30s. Now, if I remember right, Spearhead was played on 30 by 30s, which I could mount these on 30 by 30s and play. Not only could I play Battle Group, Test of Battle, O Group, and Spearhead, that would be perfectly fine, but I think I want to just stick with the small bases, and then if I need to put somebody on a 30 by 30, I will. Like maybe this machine gun team, or maybe a mortar team, or something like that. Anti-tank guns, I think, or I should say, like anti-tank teams, like bazookas and Panzer Shreks, they should fit on a base like this with no problem. Yeah, so now part of my philosophy of why I've decided to rebase them is think about like this. If I have my troops all based three figures on a stand, right? If I have all my guys based like this, and I decide to play the man-to-man game of Battle Group, I could just pull one of these, and one of these, and one of these, and that's 9 guys. And if I need 10, I would take one of my commanders that I have individually based and just put it there, and boom, now I've got 10 guys. Right, so I don't see a problem with that. The reason why I think I'm going to put all my figures on, or a 3-figure. So, you can put 1 figure, 2 figure, 3 figure. You can put whatever you want, because that's not important. It's just that as long as both sides have the same convention, then you're perfectly fine, right? So I could put them on giant bases or small bases or whatever. This is just what I want to do. And if you're playing a battle group, they're basically technically individually based, but think of it like they're individually based on a movement tray, because individual figures can die. I would just use a casualty cap to, or a casualty ring to indicate that someone was dead. So it should work no problem with Battle Group as long as I keep the numbers on the bases small, like 3. Now, I thought about 2 because originally when I was playing Command Decision, 2 was the base size, figure-wise. And I could go 2, 2, and 2, and 6 figures could be my entire platoon. But if I was to do that, and then I wanted to play Battle Group, I would have to have, like, this many stands representing a squad, which is fine. They would be 2 figures per, but the problem arises when you talk about certain types of units in Battle Group that can be detached, because the Bren gun teams, when they're detached, they detach as a 3-man team, and you can't do that with a 2-figure base. So I've decided to go with 3-figure bases. That way it's going to allow my Bren gun teams to be detached, my BAR teams or whatever teams can be detached. Machine guns are on almost always a 3-man team, so that's going to work. Now, some, like an O group, some, like the commanders, well, first of all, you're not counting individual men in O group, right? This is a section. This is always going to be a group of men. So it doesn't really matter how many figures you put on there, because it's going to be approximately 8 to 12 guys. Might be a few less. But your commander might have an FO, and so you can actually have a second stand that has the FO. And so the FO, I was thinking about just putting 2 figures on it, just like I already do. So there's a lot of figures that there's a lot of stands that I won't have to convert because they're already good, like these guys. I made these guys originally as, or at least the Germans, I made them as a reconnaissance Aufklärungs. These are SS painted, with the P dot camouflage and everything. So I'm excited to, I'm going to have to rebase my models, and it's going to allow me to play a battalion-sized action where battle group, anything over about a company starts to, if you try to go with 2 companies on the table, it takes up too much space, because remember, they're individually mounted, and there's too many command orders and die rolls. And I've noticed that O Group can put 3 companies on the table and be very streamlined and play super fast. Without it, and it won't be more figures. That's my point. I can have a company in battle group which would immediately transfer to a battalion in O group, which would immediately transfer to a regiment in command decision or spearhead. So each one is a different level of commander. So you're either like a captain, or you're a major, or you're a colonel, right? So they all have their advantages and disadvantages. Now, something that I am concerned with is the built-up areas. In command decision, a built-up area would be a building, right? And then you would have you might have something underneath it where the footprint is, a lot like what I'm doing my town sectors in my Napoleonics game. You pull the model up and you put the figures on the town sector, and then now they're filled in, right? And then when they leave, you just take the building and put it back on the hull. That's pretty much the way I'm doing it in my Napoleonics game. But in battle group, you actually would put the figures inside. I'm sure that you could technically take your figures and just put them like this and say they're inside, specifically if you don't have a building that opens. Or like my church that I built for the Lafier Bridge, I made a church with a walled courtyard, and in that courtyard was like a small cemetery. But then you could take your figures and you could just put them inside that walled courtyard, and they would be in O group or spearhead or command decision, they would be considered in the town sector or in the built up area. Because in those games, one building does not represent one building, it represents 2 or 3 buildings, something that a platoon could occupy, which would be like 30 men, where in battle group, a building can only hold about 10 men per floor. I mean, you can have multiple floors. So, so I have to be cognizant of like buildings and town sectors. And here's another part of my dilemma is that I don't know. I don't think I want to have a like a piece of felt on the table with a building sitting on top of it representing a built up area, and then I pull the building and put the figures. I think I want to do it like my church and have a board, representing the built up area, and having the building, it can sit on the board. That's not a problem. I could swap out a church for a farm, or I could put a couple of buildings in there or whatever. But like I want to have the built up area represented by maybe a walled or a hedgerow or a fence around a something that is modeled with terrain. And then when you occupy it, you don't need to move the building. You could just put the troops on that board, and now you've got an occupied town sector. But now I could pull the church off and put a farm building down instead, to represent a farm. But I could still use the same board, if that makes sense. Or if I decide I want to make it a church, I could have used the same board and put a church. So, or if I really want to be a grognard, if I really want to be a stickler, I could glue the building down to the board and really build up some, terrain around it. And then when I pull the board, the building comes with it. The problem with that is, well, first of all, that's not a problem because I can make a board for every one of my buildings. That's not a problem. But the downside is you're locking your building in to always having that same built up area around it. I want to have maybe some variations in sizes and shapes. I want to have some built up areas that are rectangular, some that are square, some that are long and thin, some might be not triangular, but almost triangular, like a trapezoid or something. And then I can put a building in that area. Now, I have to kind of decide how big I want to make these boards to accommodate a platoon, right? So the built-up area has to accommodate the building that you put on it and 3 infantry stands. And my understanding is that a officer and an attached weapon. So like if I had an attached medium machine gun to my platoon and I had an officer, the built up area has to be able to support all of that, which is that's really not that big of a deal. That's 3 inches by maybe 4 inches, right? So if I'm using this building, if I was using I don't know, let's say this building, it would still be the same size. And if I use this building, yeah, same size. So I'll have to look at some of my World War II buildings. Uh, but I'm thinking a 4x4 square would be sufficient. And then, but I want to make it so that the building can go inside of it and the troops can be deployed outside of it. All the way around. Let's see how big that is. 4x5. Okay, so I can make like a 4x5 template, which really not that big. That's actually a good size. Hold on. How big is 4x5 when it comes to base width? 4 is approximately 100 millimeters, which is just over 2 base widths. And then 5 is just over 3 base widths. I've got some town sectors right now in my Napoleonics game that is 4 base widths long, which is 4, 8, 12, 16, which is like 6 inches. So a 4x5 should be a perfect size for a town sector with a bordering wall or fence. And even then, I don't have to put a wall or fence, but I think it would make it clear that it is part of the built-up area. And then I could put like a little gate. I could put like a little path that leads to the building. I could really design, but then if I'm making the building modular, where I'm taking it off and putting it down, then that path really wouldn't apply, right? Or I could put a building in there like this has, and just put any building that I'm swapping it out with. I could have the path go to whatever building's door they have, and put a fence or a wall or something around it. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build some hard MDF baseboards with kind of like I did the Roman town, where I made the entire Roman town with a road and everything, and then I made little foundations where buildings can sit on, but I don't need to make the foundations where buildings sit on. I could just make it grass, and then just not static grass, because then the building would sit up. But if I made it like just turf, the buildings would sit down on the turf and it would look just fine. Or I could make a section in the built-up area like really muddy, or just paint it flat, and then any building could fit on that little flat area. I don't know. That's just something I have to think about. And then finally, O Group uses a mechanic which I'm going to have to explore, called combat patrols. And the rule book says 2-inch circles, which is 50 millimeters. That's pretty gigantic, right? That's like this big around. And every game that I've seen, either by the game designer or other people that play, use 40 millimeter discs. Some people use poker chips, because a poker chip is 39 millimeters. So they use poker chip to move the combat patrol around. But I think a poker chip, that works in an emergency. But what I want to do is take a few figures, like maybe 3 figures, uh, and put them on a 40 millimeter circle, right? Which I think that's 50. Yeah, so it'd be even smaller than that. Maybe I use a. Hold on, what do we got here? Right, these are 30 apiece. So if these guys are together, right, you're looking at almost a 100. So a 50 millimeter circle or 2 inches would not be a bad size. I just think that 40 millimeters would make the patrol smaller, right? Um, and because I don't want to move around like this 6 inch or 8 inch disc around the table. I want it to be as small as possible. I don't want it to be just 20 millimeters for one figure. So I was thinking 40 millimeters for 2 or 3 figures, and then and not square, make it round, so it'll be obvious that that is a combat patrol and not like a commander or an FO or an infantry platoon or an anti-tank gun, because all my combat elements are going to be on squares or rectangles, and then all my command elements are going to be on their own little individual circles, and then combat patrols are going to be on a bigger circle. I think that's the way I'm going to do it. All right, guys. So a quick recap. I got some figures in from Victrix and Old Glory. You should check those out. I finished painting my buildings. I got videos that I need to edit and put up, and I finished my artillery for my allied side. All the artillery, just not the limbers, and still have a long way to go to get my Quatre Bras finished. I could play a game right now with like 2 divisions on the table on each side, but I'm still working. What I'm working on right now is my French commission. It's kind of sizable, so it might take me a while. So I'm slowly working on that, putting stuff together, and then I'm looking forward to getting my Test of Battles rules in, and my hard copy of O Group. I already have the PDF for O Group, and I haven't really read the entire thing. I've glanced through it 2 times, and I've watched a lot of tutorials. So I think I need to just get in there and crunch the numbers. And I need to start rebasing. I've got a lot of spare miniatures that I've collected for my own battle group. And those spare figures can easily go on combat patrols. You know? And if I build my future forces for O Group, I'll only need what are we looking at? 9, we'll call it 10 with the commander, 10 bases for a company, which is 30 figures. So with 3 per, right? So 30 figures will get me a company. 90 figures will get me a battalion, which is what O Group is designed to play as. And so all you need is 90 figures. If you play with 15 millimeter, all I need is 2 bags of infantry, right? From Old Glory. So for $30, I could have an entire battalion. If I use Plastic Soldier Company, you know, you can get like 100 figures, 100 plus, 140 figures for like $30. So for $30, you can get, well, there is an option in the Army Builder. So like if you are using points, which I never do, but if you're using points, you can add a fourth company. So that would be 120 figures, right? And then if you add like an engineer platoon or an assault platoon or something like that, you're adding another 30 figures per. So you could, for under 150 figures, you're equipping a battalion with a bunch of supports. And that's approximately what you get in a Plastic Soldier Company box, right? So yeah, so I could just I already have all these boxes collected and a lot of them already painted. Not all of them. I still have loose figures. But if I had just one battalion of SS, one battalion of Fallschirmjägers, one battalion of American infantry, one battalion of American paratroopers, one battalion of British, one battalion of British paras, Russians, you can build your battalions pretty quick in O Group, and tanks, 2 tanks represent a platoon, right? I think. But wait, one tank represents 2 or 3 physical tanks. So 2 tank models represents a whole platoon. So 6 tank models represents a company of tanks. Maybe 7 if you have a commander. I'm not sure how that works. But so just imagine 6 tanks representing a tank company, and if you were playing battle group, you would need 15 tanks, 15 or 16 tanks to represent a company. Yeah, so that's crazy. It's not crazy. It's just a bigger expansion. Plus, you can play on a 4x6 table with no problem. They recommend a larger table if you're playing in 1/72nd, obviously. But I have a 4x6, and it's kind of designed for 15 millimeters, so we're there. All right, guys, I just wanted to keep you updated on what's going on in the store and what's going on in my head. And once I get the O Group rules like read and understood, and I get the Test of Battle Command Decision 4, once I get that in and I read it a little bit and I kind of understand it, because I already do understand Command Decision, but I understand there's some major rules changes. And Spearhead, and I'm just gonna rebase to my heart's content. And if I have a bunch of figures painted that I don't envision using anytime soon, I think I'm going to put them up on the store. I've already put some units on the store, so if you're looking for some painted 15 millimeter, it's already up. There are some units up there, but I might be going in and pulling them for O Group. I wasn't going to use them in Battle Group, but I might use them in O Group or in Command Decision, so I might have to go reacquire them. All right, I keep rambling on. I'm sorry. Thank you for checking this video out. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my eBay store. And if you want to have something commissioned for you, be sure to drop me an email, and I'll quote you some prices. All right, I'll catch you in the next one.